Hello and welcome to Ani's Short Stories. I hope you enjoy this story. I'm going to try and upload a new story each day. The Cursed Ring. Holly Arnold wasn't sure why she had agreed to clean out her grandmother's decrepit house on the Isle of Wight. Perhaps it was guilt her visits to Nan's place in Yarmouth had become infrequent over the years. Or maybe it was the lure of closure, the chance to piece together the fragments of a woman she had adored but barely understood. The house was a time capsule of fraying lace curtains, faded wallpaper, and a faint lavender scent clinging to the air. As Holly sifted through the attic, she stumbled upon a small, intricately carved oak box tucked into a corner. The box creaked open to reveal its treasure, a delicate gold ring set with a crimson gem. It sparkled even in the dim light, as though it had been waiting for her. A note was folded beneath the ring. The ink was faded, but the warning it carried was chillingly clear: to my descendants, wear this ring only if you wish to invite ruin. It has brought nothing but sorrow to our family. Burn it, bury it, but do not wear it. The dramatic much? Holly muttered, slipping the ring onto her finger. It was a perfect fit, and she couldn't deny how it complemented her hand. She dismissed the warning as a product of an overactive imagination. After all, Nan had always been a little eccentric. That night Holly dreamed of a woman in a tattered wedding gown, her face pale as frost, with hollow eyes that glowed faintly red. The woman's bony fingers clawed at the air, reaching for Holly. "Give it back," she shrieked. Holly awoke drenched in sweat, the echo of the scream lingering in her ears. The ring felt heavier than it had the day before, its crimson gem glinting menacingly in the moonlight streaming through her bedroom window. She resolved to take it off in the morning. But the ring wouldn't budge. Her finger throbbed and swelled as she twisted and pulled, to no avail. Her frustration turned to fear when she noticed faint scratches on her wrist, as though someone or something had clawed at her in the night. The next few days were a blur of escalating dread. Shadows in the corners of rooms seemed to lengthen and writhe when Holly glanced their way. The whispers began soon after, soft and indistinct, but always calling her name. The air in the house grew colder, despite the unseasonably warm autumn outside. And the dreams were relentless. Each night, the ghost bride returned, her skeletal face inching closer, her words more desperate. "It's mine, you'll die for this." Desperate for answers, Holly scoured her grandmother's journals. Among the rambling entries about weather and garden pests, she found fragments of a darker tale. The ring had been passed down through generations, starting with a great-aunt who had worn it on her wedding day and died that very night. Her husband, devastated, had attempted to destroy the ring but failed. Every subsequent wearer had suffered untimely deaths, drownings, fires, suicides, all inexplicable, all tied to the cursed heirloom. Holly realized her grandmother had likely hidden the ring away to break the cycle, only for Holly to unleash its horrors once more. Determined to break the curse, Holly sought help from the Isle of Wight's local historian, an elderly man named Mr. Ferris. He listened to her story with a grim expression, eventually leading her to an overgrown church out on the island's southern coast. "This is where it began," he explained. The headstone bore the name Catherine Maynard and the dates of her birth and death, both eerily close to Holly's own birthday. She died on her wedding day, her ring stolen by the man who left her at the altar. Legend says her spirit cursed the ring, binding her rage and sorrow to it. That night, Holly returned to the graveyard with a sledgehammer, a silver chalice, and salt. The moon hung low and full, casting the graves in a ghostly glow. Standing over Catherine Maynard's grave, Holly recited a prayer Ferris had written for her, then placed the chalice on the earth, pouring salt into it. But as she raised the sledgehammer to shatter the ring, the ghost bride appeared. This time she was solid, her decayed gown fluttering as if caught in a wind no one else could feel. Her voice was no longer a scream but a guttural growl. "You will not break my bond." Holly swung the sledgehammer, but it stopped midair as if gripped by invisible hands. The ring burned her finger, searing her skin. With a final burst of willpower, she screamed, "Take it back," then yanked the ring off, flinging it into the chalice. The bride shrieked, a high, keening wail that rattled Holly to her core. The ghost's form dissolved into mist, which spiraled into the chalice. The ring exploded with a burst of crimson light, leaving the graveyard eerily silent. In the weeks that followed, Holly moved back to London, determined to leave the Isle of Wight and its ghosts behind. But every so often, she caught a glimpse of something in her peripheral vision, a pale woman in a tattered gown, her hollow eyes burning red. The ring was gone, but Holly couldn't help but wonder if some curses were forever. Holly couldn't shake the feeling that the curse wasn't truly broken. Her nights remained restless, plagued by fleeting shadows and whispers that danced at the edge of her hearing. Even mundane tasks felt ominous, as though she were being watched. One evening, as she unpacked a box of items she'd brought back from Nan's house, she froze. Inside was the oak box that had once held the cursed ring. She remembered leaving it behind, yet here it was, the wood polished as though newly restored. Her hands trembled as she opened it, half expecting the ring to reappear. Instead, she found a folded scrap of paper with unfamiliar handwriting. "You cannot escape the past, Holly. The bond is not broken." Desperation drove Holly to seek help from Ferris again. She called his number, but there was no answer. When she drove back to his home on the island, she found the place deserted. A neighbor informed her that Ferris had died mysteriously 2 days after helping her at the graveyard. His body was found in his study, his face twisted in terror, and his hand clutching a piece of gold, the cursed ring. Holly's stomach churned. The curse hadn't been broken. It had been passed on to Ferris only to return. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. The ghost bride's voice was clearer now, not just in her dreams but in waking moments. "You are mine, Holly." One night she woke to find deep scratches carved into her bedroom walls, spelling the word return. The ring's burn scar on her finger ached as though it were alive. Holly realized she couldn't simply run. The curse had tied itself to her soul, and unless she ended it, she would be haunted until her dying breath. She delved deeper into Catherine Maynard's story, uncovering a detail she had missed. Catherine's groom-to-be, a man named Edward Talbot, had stolen the ring after jilting her and used it to pay off his gambling debts. The betrayal was what had damned the ring and Catherine's spirit. The only way to break the curse, Holly learned, was to reunite the ring with Catherine's bones and beg her forgiveness. But with Ferris dead and the ring missing, Holly had no idea how to retrieve it. The ring came back to her on a stormy November night. Holly was alone in her flat when the lights flickered and a deafening crash of thunder shook the walls. The air turned icy, and a shadow coalesced in the corner of the room, taking the form of the ghost bride. This time, Catherine's face was no longer skeletal but beautiful, though her eyes remained burning coals. In her outstretched hand was the ring, glowing crimson as if forged in fire. Holly's body moved against her will, her hand drawn toward the ring like a magnet. The ghost's voice filled the room, a mixture of sorrow and fury. Holly fought with every ounce of her strength. "I'll free you, Catherine, I swear it." Her words seemed to reach the ghost, who hesitated, her fiery eyes dimming. The ring fell to the floor with a clang. The next day, Holly returned to Catherine's grave, armed with a shovel, the ring, and a new plan. She dug through the rain-soaked earth until her spade struck the coffin. With trembling hands, she pried open the decaying wood. Inside lay the skeletal remains of Catherine Maynard, her bony fingers clutching a wilted bouquet. Holly placed the ring into the skeleton's hand. "And you can rest now." For a moment, nothing happened. Then a surge of energy erupted from the grave, knocking Holly backward. The ghost bride appeared once more, but now her eyes glowed with a gentle light. Her lips curved into a faint smile as she whispered, "Thank you." She dissolved into the mist, which faded into the night. The oppressive air lifted. The whispers ceased. For the first time in weeks, Holly felt a sense of peace. Months later, Holly visited the graveyard to ensure Catherine's rest remained undisturbed. The grave had been repaired, and flowers had begun to bloom around the site. Yet, as Holly turned to leave, she felt a faint tug on her coat. She looked down and froze. In the soft earth at the grave's edge was the faint outline of a ring, its crimson gem glinting in the sunlight. Some curses, it seemed, were eternal. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please don't forget to like, and even better, like and subscribe. Thank you very much, and I hope you have had or have a great day.